Welcome, everyone. Happy International Women's Day month. My name is Jessica McKenzie. I am a patient experience manager here at the Emory Physician Group Practices, and I am extremely excited and really honored to host today's panel with these wonderful six women joining us today. I'd like to, before we begin, I'd like to give a thank you to Oni. She is our manager here within the orthopedics and spine department. She is the chair of the fossil MSK fossil group, and she was unable to join us today because she is out. She just had a little one, but she wanted to thank everyone who was able to attend to join us today. And I also encourage everyone as we go through the panel and as we're having our discussion, if you have any questions that you would like to ask our panelists, to please submit it in the Q&A chat option that you'll see at the bottom of your screen. It looks like little chat boxes that you would normally see in cartoon style. Without further ado, I want to go ahead and begin by first giving a little bit of a background on International Women's Month. And then I want to also give you a brief introduction of all of our panelists today. So leading up to the birth of International Women's Month was a time of great expansion and turbulence in an industrialized world that saw booming population growth and a rise of radical ideologies. In 1908, women's oppression and inequality was spurring women to become more vocal and active in campaigning for change. 15,000 women marched through New York City demanding shorter hours, better pay, and voting rights. The first National Women's Day was observed across the United States on February 28th. Then in 1910, at a second international conference of working women, a woman named Clara Zetkin tabled the idea of having an International Women's Day. She proposed that every year in every country, there should be a celebration on the same day, a Women's Day, to press for their demands. The conference of over 100 women from 17 countries representing unions, socialist parties, working women's clubs, they all greeted the idea and suggestion with unanimous approval, and thus International Women's Day was the result. The first gathering was held the following year in 1911, and since then it has grown and built, and now we have International Women's Month. And this is a wonderful time, a wonderful month for us to really look back at the progress that we've made when it comes to those the fights for equality and equal pay, and just making sure that our voices are heard. So without further ado, I would like to introduce our panelists. We have Miss Lanice Gibson, our Executive Director at Orthopedic Services for Grady Health Systems. Maureen Haldeman, Chief Operating Officer for our Emory Physician Group Practices. We have Virginia Jenny Hernandez, Chief Financial Officer for Trilith Studios. We have Chika Okuru, Director of Marketing Insights and Customer Strategy for Fabfitfun. We have Veronica Sheehan, the Chief Operating Officer for Make-A-Wish Georgia. And then we have Brandon Sills Paynes, Customer Marketing Manager for Smart Recruiters. Thank you so much, ladies, for joining us. I'm very excited for us to speak today. I encourage everyone, we have a few questions that I have for all of you, of course, as we talk to our attendees about your own personal journeys and any insights that you have for individuals who are looking to progress within corporate America. But then I also encourage our panel, if you have questions for one another, to please to ask as well. I wanted to first, as we start, to start with kind of just a little icebreaker so that our attendees can get to know you all a little bit better, but then help transition us a little bit more into whom you are as individuals, as well as within the corporate world and within your position. So this is a little fun question. So If a technology company invented a device that allowed you to communicate with your past self, what message would you leave her? I'm going to pick on Brandis first because I know that you started in the tech world. So I would like to start with you.
Yeah, I mean, if you can't tell by the way that I'm dressed, I'm definitely from tech. Got my tech uniform on. Gosh, that is a hard question. I would say, look at challenges as a sort of mentorship for myself. I don't think I saw it that way back then. I think I just thought everything was hard and terrible. And I also was a person who had relationships that got me opportunity, but I didn't really have mentors. And trial and error would just be my greatest teacher. And it's going to be okay. It gets better.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Chica?
Cool. Yes, I could go next. I think what I would tell my past self or former self. Did we say how far back we have to go? Are we talking our 5-year-old selves, our 15-year-old selves, our self from yesterday? Like,
I'll give you the choice on the timeline of how far back you want to kind of give that supportive message.
cool. I'll give this to let's say early college years. I think that's an important transition point in a woman's life. And so I'll say trust that everything will work out. No need to be so fixated on that one job that you think will like all of a sudden make your life perfect, or that one college you're trying to get into or grad school you're trying to get into that you think will make your life perfect. And to spend just as much time figuring out what you think you're supposed to do. Instead, spend that time really trying to see what it is that you want to do and really trying to see what interests you versus just trying to figure out what you think you're supposed to be doing. That's exactly what I told myself yesterday. What I wish I told myself yesterday.
I'm hearing a theme here, and I can definitely connect with both of the messages that you both have said that you would send your past selves. Lanice, what about you?
Well, Chica, Brandis, I wish you would tell me that back in my former self. But yeah, I think I would say, quit sweating the small stuff, and just appreciate, the present, and understand that, don't beat yourself up so much. I know I probably say that to myself also on a regular basis, but I really, back in the day, I think I really beat myself up if I didn't meet a goal or hit a threshold or do something. And nowadays I'm like, when you're at a certain point, you don't sweat the small stuff.
Awesome, thank you. Maureen?
Sure, I definitely agree with everything folks are saying. And when you first asked the question, the first thing that popped into my head was take a breath. You don't have to go rushing headlong into everything, and just make sure that you're really focusing on what is right for you. And a corollary to that, I think, is to take care of yourself. Probably at this stage, no matter what, one of the things I value the most is just a little bit of sleep, and good sleep at that. So take a breath and know that it will work out one way or the other. Even don't sweat the big stuff either. It will believe in yourself. It'll be all right.
Veronica?
Yes, I would say lots of themes here that were all the same. I think there's two things I would tell my younger self, because there's a lot that, the risk that I've taken in my life personally and professionally, I don't regret. I am one of those people that says, well, if I don't do something, I will regret it. So I usually do things. But there were times, especially earlier in my career, when I first became a vice president, when I was at Turner, now Warner Media, where I had imposter syndrome really badly. And I doubted myself. And I wish I could go back to myself and say, like, why did you doubt yourself? That was too much to take on. You knew what you were doing, and everyone knew you were doing. So believe in yourself. So that I wish I could tell myself. The other thing too, which I actually just had this conversation before we got on with a colleague, I wish I would have listened to this advice or gotten this advice earlier in my career. It would have helped me with some relationships. It's not who you like, it's who you need. And sometimes I struggled with people that I didn't like the way they approached things, or I didn't think they were a team player. And I think my Brooklyn self would come into the conversation and be a little defensive about it. And that put up barriers with other people at times. So I wish I could take back, not listening to that advice or getting that advice earlier in my career.
Awesome. Thank you. I actually just had that conversation with myself just the other day as well in regards to imposter syndrome. Sometimes all of these messages that I'm hearing that you would give your past self, sometimes you still have those little milestones or breaks where you have to shake yourself up and say, hey, you've got this. You're supposed to be here. Take a breath. And Jenny, what about you?
I would have to agree with all the other ladies as well. And, to myself, it would be, slow down, smell the roses, enjoy the moment. Sometimes we do try to get ahead of ourselves and not live in the present. And the present is all we have. There's actually a book called The Present. And I love that book because this is all that we really have. The other message I think I would send myself would be to network more, because, the time to have the relationship is before you need it. So when I was younger, my younger self was a lot shyer than I am now. And so I was always like the observer more than kind of getting out there in front. So I think I probably would have sent that message to myself as well.
Awesome. Thank you. That's great advice, especially to those who are tuning in, who are looking to potentially climb the corporate ladder. I won't forget, Maureen, I'm not sure if you remember Alan Dubofsky, one of my former leaders. He noticed that that's exactly how I was. I was shy. I would just sit in the back of a meeting. I would observe. And he said to me, sometimes I look over at you and I see you have something to say. So when you're in a meeting, even if you're not sure that what you're saying is, as far as the smart enough, just say it, speak up, say something in the meeting, ask a question, give an opinion, and then kind of go from there. So I definitely agree. Networking, speaking up, really owning the fact that you're there for a reason. Someone put you there because they saw something in you when it comes to the positions. Thank you so much for indulging me and my hypothetical question. Maybe, you never know, with technology these days, you never know. We might be able to have something fun like that. The next question that I would like to ask the team or the panel: when you think of the climate of corporate America, when you entered the workspace or work environment versus today's corporate America, what would you say the vast differences are, both positive and negative? And I'd like to ask Lanice to answer this question first.
Oh, wow. So I think when I first started, the awareness around, I think, the political sensitivities of what you should or should not say around people, it's not as I think acute as it is today. And I hope also that today the awareness is also within self, meaning those people who are truly not saying certain things, it's because they know, and they are truly not saying certain things because they know it's wrong. When I first started, just to give you an example, I interviewed, and when I was in the interview, a physician actually asked me, what kind of Oriental are you? And I looked around, and I wasn't sure exactly if he was talking to me. Really, you're asking me that question? Is it the vase? Is the carpet? No, he meant that. And I went on to tell him, I am Korean. And I, at that point in time, I don't think I was brave enough to say, hey, you know, I'm not sure that that's the right kind of question to ask. I am Asian. And now I think today in this environment, if I were asked that same question, and hopefully I'm not, I would be able to say that, and I don't think it would be a penalty. I'm hoping that it wouldn't be a penalty. And I think, so those things I think have changed for me in what I see in corporate America. And then also an acceptance of having balance in life for females and for those who provide and participate in the workforce, and understanding the value of that. I do think for me that has changed somewhat, but I don't think it's enough. And so those are the two things that I think, good and bad.
Thank you. Something that you said, it started another question in my mind, and I would like to actually ask Brandis, especially since you work in the Smart Recruiters space, when it comes to interviewing and when it comes to that recruitment platform environment, if you're in an interview or if you are interviewing someone and you find that maybe something is asked that's inappropriate, what would be your recommendation, especially in today's environment, as we're trying to be more aware of diversity, equity, and inclusion, on should individuals feel kind of comfortable on appropriately saying in a responsible way, saying something to whatever the inappropriate question was? What would be your recommendation?
Yeah. I mean, it's not one size fits all, right? But I would say that, you know, as whatever your dimension of diversity is, when it's challenged, a lot of times, especially when you're in an interview, like this is why it's difficult to kind of answer this question, because there is a power dynamic there. There is something that you want. And so sometimes you're willing to sacrifice your identity in some ways, or the challenge of your identity to be able to meet that goal, right? Because if you need a job, it's nice to have food, it's nice to have a roof over your head. Like there's these things that like you weigh against. But I would say for me personally, when this has happened to me, the most success I've seen is pausing. And sometimes people get uncomfortable in the silence. But I need it for me to just, well, A, I don't want to go off on you. B, like I want to recenter myself and figure out how to approach this, because I think what you know, a lot of people carry is the ability to take a lot of the onus onto themselves of their reaction and how you react to things. And, you know, there's books and talks, and you could find a video on like, you know, it's not about what someone says, it's about your reaction to it. Like, you know what I mean? Like that's also true. But I think that there is always space for two things to happen. One, if you can find a way to respond to it that doesn't create more friction and confrontation, that's the hard part, especially like I said, when you're in this power dynamic. But the other part to this is there's a certain privilege that people carry when they get to make you uncomfortable. And then you either have to carry that and walk away and they just get to continue being themselves, or you can find a way to have those conversations. Things like when your name is mispronounced, I think it's totally fine to correct someone and tell them how to, you know, say your name correctly. When someone asks you a really personal question in an interview, like Lanice just hinted to, that's a really personal question. You know, there's all these statements out there that you can make that don't ruin maybe your goal, but it also may tell you, like, is this a place I want to work? Because if it starts in an interview, it's not going to stop there. But you know, that's a personal decision that people have to make, and we deal with. Let me filter myself and not say that. I was gonna say we deal with the BS all the time. So like I know like sometimes you can handle it, but you know it's important to find ways to stand up for yourself, but also, you know, to also take care of yourself as well.
Thank
Can
you.
I just comment? That was a great answer, Brandy. So that was great. You know, because that power struggle, right? I don't think there's not one of us, I could say, just meeting everyone this week, I can't say there's not one of us have been in a situation, especially as a woman, and whether it's women in technology or if you're the only woman of color in the room, there's power plays all the time, and how you show up, is so key, right? And especially in an interview, if someone said that to me, I'd be like, okay, check, culture, right? It's just the power dynamic that has not changed for women, and especially women of color, right? And so I won't speak on that. I can just observe it and support it, but your answer was just spot on, and I think we could have a whole conversation around that.
Yeah, definitely.
And I think I'd like to pile on, because Brandy, I agree that was a terrific answer. And, one of the things that you said, I think is very important, that in answering the question or not answering, the silence is very powerful, in fact, because you grab the room back. And people are forced into an uncomfortable situation. They end up sometimes over speaking after that. But silence at that moment is important, but also not being silent related to that. So in the case of an interview, tell the recruiter, what happened. They don't want that to happen either. And that might actually be representation of that particular person in that environment, not necessarily the entire culture, but it sure is not appropriate for them to be allowed to be that way. And so making sure that you're silent at the right moment, allow that power to come back to you, but also to speak up when you have the opportunity. And it did happen to me in an interview. That's why I say that.
Did you? I will chime in. I was offered that position and I did decline. Because you're right, to me, it was about culture, and I don't think that I was going to change that. And that was a decision, that was what made the decision for me, but yeah.
And I would just add that if, let's say, Lanice, that was asked of her in a meeting, right? And one of us were with her and she paused and was silent, what we could do is support her, right? Because as more women are at the table, the more we have to support each other. The more we have to say, well, you can do it like, it was said before, in an unthreatening way, but support that was not cool. That was not something you should be bringing up. But, hopefully we'll get more and more women at the table, and especially in organizations where we're still growing and industries are still growing, the diversity, we have to support one another.
Yeah, I think the very last thing I would say, because I think the audience here is you may be getting into a job, or you're trying to move up in a job, or you're trying to figure it out, that like it's very real that you might not have this type of power in that situation. And so what I used to do when I was starting out, especially with entry-level positions, is I kind of knew what was going to be thrown at me, and so I would prep myself with responses to the most, the questions I would get the most, and that way I came in prepared, just in case the person was trash.
Thank you, ladies. Veronica, something that you said in regards to if we were in a meeting, one of the things that I found myself doing lately is kind of having a meeting buddy, where if something is said, or if there's a thought that I have, she and I will lock eyes, and it's as if she knows exactly what I'm thinking. And I agree with you. I think it's powerful to kind of have a meeting buddy. And at one point, I say she now because as far as my current team members, but at one point I did have a male that was my meeting buddy, and he just got it. And sometimes he would speak up for me, and I really appreciated the fact that he had my back like that. But you're right, having that meeting buddy that really just understands what's going on, it was very helpful in those awkward situations, but then also building that confidence of, okay, again, I'm here for a reason. This person is building me up, even if it's just silently with their eyes. He's telling me to push on and go ahead and say what I need to say. Jenny, going back to my original question in regards to kind of that climate of corporate America when you entered versus corporate America today, do you see or have you experienced any vast differences?
Well, I'm going to date myself here. I got into corporate America in the late 80s, 1988 to be exact. And when I got into corporate America, women still wore skirts, they wore hosiery, and they had to wear closed-toed shoes. So people could still smoke at their desk. That went away toward the early to mid 90s. And then there was the corner office, and that always meant hierarchy or prestige. Everybody wanted that corner office. And then over time that has changed. There's cubicles, and now it's almost like if you have your own office, it's almost like you're just, you're locked in there, and it's just, you're excluding yourself from the others. So I've seen a lot of growth in that respect, as far as where women have a lot of more liberties just to be freer, as far as, the way they dress or the way they speak and so forth. And not everybody's so worried about the corner office. I feel like diversity's come a long way in these past, 25, 30 years, but I still think we have a long ways to go.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Any of our other panelists, did you want to kind of share what your experiences was like entering corporate America versus how it is today?
Yeah, I'd just like to just add, I'm actually the same generation, if you will, and started work in 1987. So this was back when we had to wear skirts, but we also had to look like men. So I would never wear these earrings to work because they're too feminine. I used to wear little ribbons because they look like ties. And I think one of the things that has really changed is that you can actually wear what allows you to still be a woman, whatever that is. And, even looking around the Zoom, everybody's got something different, and that's all fine. There is no quote uniform. And I think that has changed so much that we forget what a luxury that actually is, that there's not a uniform that means you're successful. And I think that's important. And the other thing I was just laughing about was that at the corporate cultures that I have been in, is somehow I've ended up in areas where we're mostly women at the lower levels and mostly men at the upper levels. And my first boss would smoke Gauloise cigarettes in front of me all day because that's what he did. And my desk sat right outside his door. That would never be tolerated today for both of those reasons. That's very inappropriate behavior to not recognize that it might be affecting someone's health. So that we've come a long way in that regard.
Thank you. When it comes to the journey where we've come to when it comes to diversity, equity, inclusion, as you all have mentioned, we've come a long way, but we do have a ways to go. Brandis, I know that's the realm that you work in, and helping organizations really diversify their staffing and showing them the importance of diversifying it. What are some of the steps that you take in encouraging that and really just showing showing how beneficial it is?
Yeah, I mean, there's a spectrum. We've been at the DEIB conversation, I think, for quite some time, and I think the progress that I see now is, the spectrum, including sometimes you need to really just start at unconscious bias. Sometimes you can start talking about multiple dimensions of diversity, and actually getting to the inclusion and belonging part, not just like your workforce should look like the world. We're everywhere in between. So the success in your business, of course, is about the idea and the plan, but what we try to drive home, that it's really about the people. And when people feel included, that's a catalyst to purpose. It's a catalyst to belonging. And then I think that, you know, when people move from, I say this very loosely, but like kind of being held hostage by their salary, I sell you my time, therefore I do a good job because I want to continue to sell my time so you continue to pay me, right? And so like there's this contract that you have. Moving into inclusion and belonging, like now I'm a part of the vision, right? Like I feel like I can own a part of this and I want to show up as my best self. And when you start to talk about the real kind of bottom line statistics, like I don't like when diversity happens because of fear or bottom line, but we got to get there some way with some people. There's a real uptick in the success of business and the exchange of ideas, and in how businesses grow. And so, you know, right now we're building out this template for people to use that says like, here's where you are on the, we call it the diversity hiring maturity model. And so if you're at a level 1, here's what you should do to get to a level 2, and so on and so forth. And that's different for every business. It depends on whether or not, you know, there's a sameness culture or whether you've made some steps towards diversity. There's never, I wish there was a magic wand. It'd be like, ah, boom, you're like, you're diverse now, it's great. It is a uphill battle, but I see a lot of hope, and a lot of really big companies are taking on this challenge and really wanting to meet it head on, and are willing to look at themselves and see how they're playing a role in things either changing or not changing.
Thank you.
I'd like to add something to that. So here at the studios, at Trilla Studios, we have a very diverse environment here. And the one thing I've noticed with the diversity is that a diverse workforce is an innovative workforce. So we have diversity as far as gender, culture, age, race. And when you combine all of it together, it just is creative and it's more innovative. But there's another form of diversity that I don't think we always think of. And my sister actually gave me this thought. It's thought diversity as well. So I embrace all of it. And I've noticed here at the studios, we have about 50 people on our payroll. Everybody is like, you know, focused on the vision. The vision is, you know, taught to us every day, and everybody's super excited about it. And the diversity just brings it all together in innovation.
What does working in that type of environment, like how has, what has that meant to you as far as being able to work in that type of diverse environment?
It's a supercharge. I can't even describe it. You know, like I'm Hispanic. I have predominantly been working in global roles where my language skills have been required. This position hasn't required that. And to come to an environment where you don't have to have that, and then but it's still diversified. It's just, it supercharges me. Like every day I'm excited when I come in. I have a very long drive to get here. I don't mind doing it because when I get here, I'm just excited to be here. You can just see that everybody's like, it's like a healthier environment. You know, everybody's supportive. Everybody's open to bringing ideas to the table. Nobody's afraid. So it's just a supercharged environment. I can't even describe it with words.
That's awesome.
Mhm.
And I remember when we had that conversation about your work environment, you kind of just lit up when you talked about going into meetings and collaborating with your team members. So I definitely can tell that you really enjoy the corporation that you work for, working with Trilla.
Most definitely, yes.
I'd like to ask Chika a question based off of something that Brandis had said, and when it comes to that unconscious bias. I know that you, in watching your TED Talk, which was awesome, by the way, you mentioned some of the unconscious bias that comes with the women of color when it comes to lighter complexion, darker complexion, things of that nature. Could you talk to us a little bit more about that and how you feel like it's affected maybe even your progression within the workspace?
Yeah, no, that's a really good question. I haven't seen it play a huge, so just stepping back, the talk he was referring to is I gave a talk about colorism, and colorism, for just in case anyone doesn't know, it's discrimination against those of a darker skin tone, and it typically happens within the same race, and it happens in many cultures. You know, folks with darker skin tone being discriminated against and viewed as lesser than those with lighter skin tones. And so, you know, you see this play out in a lot of spaces. And I would say, you know, back, you know, in the past, it definitely played a really big role professionally in terms, at least in the African American community, lighter skin individuals are able to get higher paying jobs, better jobs, and definitely given more opportunities. Um, I don't see that as much today. I definitely see the effects that's in socially and things like that, where I definitely have had an experience so recently. And so I work at Fabfitfun, which is a women's subscription box full of really great things. Everyone should look it up. And so we have a lot of beauty products in the box. And before I joined, the team that puts the box together was not very diverse. And so when I joined the team, what I realized is me even just being in the room really would help the team see that, like, hey, you know, this makeup product that we're putting in, I don't think it would even work on Chica. Will this shade even show up? And so really noticing that had I not been there, it wouldn't even have crossed their mind, because they look around and they're like, hey, these products will work for everyone in this building. So it's not until someone else shows up who doesn't fit the mold that it can start to open up their minds to say, like, oh, wait, we actually need to have products that would work on Chica's hair. They never had to think that before. Or make sure we have you know, color cosmetics that will work on different skin tones. So I know it can really help to just be in the room, to just help it be top of mind for folks, because, you know, I love everyone I work with and they're all great people, but just wasn't top of mind for them that they may not be putting products into the box that are relevant to everybody.
That's awesome. Have any of you started working within a space where you realized that once you kind of came to the table that it changed the dynamics of that thought process for the company, for that department, whatever it may be?
I'll just, two things, you know, and I don't know if this will be controversial or not, but if there's a diversity effort within a corporation and they want to do a diverse hire for purpose, like we want to purposely do something, it's okay. I think it's okay, because I know myself, I was a diverse hire Turner years ago. I got the inside knowledge from the recruiter. They really want to hire a woman for this role because it's a male dominated organization. And so in the back of my head, I was like, well, if I get the job, I'm going to be the best person that they've ever hired, whether I'm a woman or not, right? But to Chica's, you know, point, right? So now you put a woman at the table and you're going to come in with a different perspective. You know, the fact that Chica was in the room and it was all women, right? But there was a woman of color and a woman of a darker skin tone, so that they could point to, oh, you're our audience too, right? So, I mean, it's brilliant, right? It's brilliant. It's necessary, right? So no one should be afraid of, if you're a diverse hire, take that and run with it. Be the best hire they'll ever have, right? But I do think, you know, I mean, Maureen, Ginny and I are probably around the same age, and I was in the media business since I got out of college, and even my internships in college, and I'd be on, you know, shoots with, you know, men, and one was a pool shoot and there was all these beautiful women in bikinis and the camera operators are zeroing in on their boobs and I'm standing there looking at the shot with the guys. I'm like, come on, you know? And so, and growing up with three older brothers, I knew how to handle myself, you know, but if I was a scared young girl, I might have, you know, frozen up. So wholly inappropriate. But the fact that I was there, I could at least maybe put a thought in their head. Hey, almost like, hey, idiots, do you have daughters? Do you have sisters? Would you want them standing here? Believe me, I've had a lot of those conversations over the years in the media business with some of my colleagues. So we can't be afraid to be the only person in the room of a certain gender, race, religion, sexual orientation, but it's a lot of pressure to be that only person. So we all have to work to get more diversity at the table, but don't be afraid to be the only one.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Oh, go ahead, Maureen.
Well, I was actually just going to say, even here at Emory, and I'll speak to all of my colleagues. When I came, and that was only 10 years ago, I would occasionally be one or two of the only women in the room for big meetings, and it was definitely the case that the women didn't speak. And it didn't take long for people to realize that they actually were in the room, and we needed to make sure that we were clearly forcing ourselves to speak, even if we felt uncomfortable, because they needed to recognize that we were here and had various opinions. And so it is still out there, even if it's not as blatant as cameramen, and when they don't realize that it's happening, and then they ask me for my opinion and all that, but it has taken a while, even in Emory.
In those types of situations where you find yourself the diverse individual at the table, whether it's because you're a woman, a person of color, what sexual orientation, whatever it may be, what recommendations would you give those individuals to kind of give themselves courage to speak, to say something? What are some of the things that you did to get yourself to that point where you felt comfortable at every meeting saying something? And this is a question just to the entire panel, if you have something that you'd like to share. Oh, everyone got quiet.
Well, I want to speak to Veronica and to what Chica was stating, but so I don't know if I've ever been the diversity hire, but I will say I've been in many positions where I may be the only Asian woman, and I don't know if there's a comfort level with that hire because there is a model minority myth and the thought process that my thinking would be in alignment more with white America, and also I'm adopted, and I was adopted by white Americans. But my secret sauce, I always say, because my husband's African American, I've been with him and have known him since I was 14 years old. I will not give my age, but I have 3 children, and my secret sauce is this. When people say certain things to me or around me or think that it's okay and have a comfort level, I get to speak up, and I get to speak in a way I feel that, is at least respectful to understanding, again, being raised by a white family, but understanding also that you have to say something and just correct someone without making them feel embarrassed about what they've said. And I will say that's something that it didn't come easily. It didn't come overnight, but having the confidence and understanding that when you do speak up and you're authentically yourself, that builds your confidence. And I think that's something that I would say that someone who wants to be in that room and needs to speak up, be authentically yourself.
And Lanice, I just wanted to really just recognize you and appreciate you for playing that role. I think that's an amazing example of allyship. I know we talk a lot about allies, or there's a lot of conversation around how to be a great ally, because that's something I think about a lot, in that there's no way for me to know what's being said about me or people like me when I'm not in the room, because I'm not in the room. And so, I really depend on allies, like exactly what you said, Lanice, to speak up when you hear things like that. So definitely just wanted to highlight the role that allies can play. And then in the roles of my identity where I am more privileged, then I definitely try to find ways to speak up when I hear things being said about other marginalized folks. So I think we can all play a role there.
And Jessica, I'll just add, I think, what Lanice was talking about, having the confidence when you are in that room and you are the maybe the lone one in a certain category. but nothing takes the place of being prepared. You know, you got to be prepared. You just have to play, you know, play it as if you want to hit home runs all the time, and navigate your authentic self with it, right? And that takes a lot of, you know, where Maureen was talking about, like, she wished she would have taken better care of herself, right? All of that, you know, whether it's meditation or just reading and just like really owning who you are and being more comfortable who you are. So when you are in a meeting, that you will show up the way you want to show up for yourself and everyone else that's going to come after you, right? It's a lot to be the only one in the room, right? Because you represent, right, almost everyone that will come after you. And so for that allyship, be prepared even if you have no one else in there to think about at the moment.
That
To second what Veronica just said, I think for me, I always trusted my career choice, and I always trusted my skill set. I think that would take my mind off if there was any diversity in the room, that I knew that would empower me in that moment, if that makes sense. That would give me the confidence I needed to move forward in that meeting or to voice my opinion. And I always remembered too that I can learn from anybody at any age, at any time. So I always try to learn and from those moments as well.
Awesome, thank you. What both of you said actually leads great into a question that was submitted by one of our attendees. Can you talk about work-life balance as an executive, and what suggestions do you have to accomplish that work-life balance?
You know, I have a very, very simple one that I'm appalled at how many people don't do, and that is, if they give you vacation days, take them. There is no gold star for not taking your vacation days. And you need them, your family needs them, your friends need them, whatever it is that you're going to do, even if all you're doing is sitting and vacuuming because that's the only time you wanted to do it, does not matter. Take your vacation. People bank it up like they're going to get some kind of prize at the end. No prize.
Yeah. You know, I think we talked about this when we were meeting as a group, you know, and you saw everyone's like, what's the secret? There's no secret. It's a juggle. It's a struggle, right? The struggle is real. You know, I'm someone, I adopted my son from birth on my own, and, you know, had a global role where I was traveling to Buenos Aires, London, Hong Kong, you know, New York, LA often, and, you know, trying to look composed all the time and look like I knew what I was doing, when my hair was on fire most of the time. So, you know, it's no one, I don't think anyone on this panel is going to tell you there's a secret. There's a secret of accepting what's at hand and knowing when to ask for help. And to Maureen's point, taking the breaks you need, but asking for help and creating your own village, whether you're single and have no kids, whether you're married with no kids, you have responsibilities, right? You have something to worry about, whether it's your own health, multiple people, you're going to need help. And, you know, when I was a senior executive at Turner, you know, I had great resources. I had a lot of help, whether it was just through the company, an administrative assistant solely to me, you know, financial support. So we can't necessarily give you the answer because everyone's struggle is different, right? You just have to figure out a way to balance it and know where your priorities are.
And I would also say for non-executives, I'm earlier in my career than a lot of folks on this call, and definitely at first I used to think that the only people who could, you know, set boundaries or advocate for work-life balance are those married with kids. And so for me, as someone earlier in my career, you know, I was unmarried, no kids, so I would think that I didn't have a right to like advocate for myself. And just the assumption is that, you know, the newer people, the younger people, you're the ones that can just work long hours, while those that are maybe, you know, in different stages of life, like they're the ones that can, you know, take time off and things like that. And I actually had an interesting moment. So at my current job in Fabfitfun, so this is pre-COVID when we were in the office, my manager at the time, she would take one work from home day. And I always just assumed that she did that because she had a long commute and she was a mom. But I realized that, you know, I could really benefit from a work from home day as well, because back then we were in the office, people would typically have meetings on the days you're in the office. So on the work from home day, you can really like actually get stuff done and like do work. And so I like prepped how I was gonna ask her for that. And I was like, yeah, and I know that you have work from home day because of your commute and because of your kids. And she was like, no, that's not why I have a work from home day. Like I have a work from home day because that's how I'm my best self. And you definitely don't need to feel like you need to justify work from home day because of a commute or because kids. Like at any point in your career, you can advocate for yourself and what you need in order to perform. So definitely want to say, even those just starting out in their career or earlier or mid-career, definitely feel empowered to advocate for yourself and set boundaries to have a good work-life balance.
Yeah, and just to reiterate that, Chica, I do not have kids. I have never had kids, and I still need balance, and it is okay to take it, no matter what part of life you're in. Mm-hmm.
I think Chica brings up a very good point about advocating for yourself. I think as women, we haven't done that enough, and it could be just the way that we're raised and ingrained. And I don't think it matters whatever culture you're from, but men are not afraid. Men will ask for what they want, or they'll raise their hand for that project. And I think what I've seen throughout my career, women in general have been afraid to do that. And I learned early on, because I went back through actually prepping for this, thinking, how many women have I worked for in my career? 10% of my bosses have been female, 90% have been male. I have learned a lot from these men over the years. And the one thing I've learned is that they will like raise their hand, or they'll advocate for themselves. And I would kind of like be back in the corner, just like Chica was saying, I was prepping and I wasn't sure what to do. And, you know, and I learned early on, it doesn't hurt to just raise your hand and ask for what you want. So.
Yeah. So Jessica, there's a question in the chat that if you don't mind, I'd like to take a stab at. And the question is, you know, has keeping a mentality of focusing on what you want to do, does that taking you somewhere different in your career? And I just want to comment that when we talk about corporate ladders, it implies two things that are not true. One is that it's all up and it's not sideways, and that it's very straight. And there has been nothing in my career that has been all up, and there has been nothing in my career that has been all straight line. And the biggest thing that I have learned over time is when an opportunity arises, whether it is something that is handed to you, or whether it's something that you just see and you're interested in, is that you should explore it. Because your mind is telling you something, yourself is telling you something, that this might be something that will add to my growth, that will give me joy, that I can help with. And you should not think about this as a straight line that you can't step out of.
Yeah, I would add to that, Maureen, that the straight line, I am in a adjacent career to my original plan. But what I've learned is, to your point, it has made me a unicorn. Like I have so many skills. And so when people are trying to check all these boxes, you know, like in the last 3 jobs, you know, I was a VP at a tech startup, and they were just like, we cannot find someone that can do what you do. And I'm like, if I had stayed on like this very bullish mindset that I had, like I need to do this, I wouldn't have those skills that I have today. And so some of the detours are going to end up serving you later. And so I would just say embrace it.
Yeah, I used to, early in my career, I felt like I was a Jane of all trades and master of none. And I thought I would not have a fit somewhere, you know. And then I realized later in my career, oh, you just have an operations mind. So you're thinking about things all the time in every perspective. So it was a skill set. And if you looked at my career, you would see, oh, manager, director, VP, SVP, global SVP. But really, I went from a VP at the studio, which was my background for years, and got promoted to another area of Turner at the time. That was not a sexy part of the business. It was not production. It was like the utility of the business. And I took it thinking that, well, it's managing technology. If I wanted to get out of this, industry, especially if I wanted to find another job in Atlanta, there's not a lot. So a technology background might be more beneficial for me. And I thought I was going to get married and have kids, and actually, slow down my career or even get rid of it in my 40s. Don't plan anything because that didn't happen. But it completely changed my career trajectory. It completely, because I was a woman in leading a technology role, the company wanted people to know about it, and I was put out there. I just got so much more exposure that if I would have stayed in the one thing that I was like, oh, I really know this area, I'm good at it, it's fun, the people are fun and innovative, but over here is not as much. And honestly, that was a complete game changer for me professionally. It was a big risk. I didn't think I'd be happy. I didn't know what it meant. And I stayed within that career, in that area of the business for 10 years. So you could still, it might not be, it was kind of sideways with a promotion, but sideways to what I knew. Does that make sense?
Definitely makes sense. I've been told that before in regards to not being afraid to take that step back or take those risks that you didn't have on your timeline before. That's something that I used to do when I was younger. I would make plans like this age, I'm going to do this. And then that age, I'm going to do this. So definitely I'm going to rip it up. I've already ripped it up. I've ripped up that plan and definitely learned from my plan is not the plan. Oh, maybe that'll be the message that I send to my former self. Your plan is not the plan, so be prepared. Something that you said earlier, Brandis, made me think of a conversation that I had with Lise earlier in regards to like detours. I know that we've had the conversation when we first all got together, when we were sharing about one another, and it made me think of one of my friends that I used to work with, where she told me a little bit about her experience from when she took a break from the workforce for probably about 15 years when she was a stay-at-home mom. And then when she re-entered into the workforce, she told me a little bit about her experience and kind of some of the preconceived notions that she received from doing that. I know everyone's experience is a little bit different. Could you share with us a little bit about your experience, just in case there's any attendees who may be thinking about taking a detour, taking a break, and then re-entering the workforce later on?
It's funny because my mind went around. I'm like, how did she know this? Because I didn't tell you this, but I get your question. But it's just funny because I did actually quit working in tech in San Francisco for a year, and just went off to like write a book and like go stare at my dog. But you couldn't have known that. So I'm like, is that where she's going with this? And then had to re-enter the workforce, and and it worked out and it was fine. But on the detour front, I mean, I've been doing some sort of version of this for, I don't know, 18, 20 years now. I know I look 12. And, when I first started out, for me, it was about survival, right? Like I was living in Atlanta, I'd gone to college in New Orleans. I didn't really see a path forward. And for me, it was always about sustainability. Like I would move out of a job because I'm just like, I can't see myself doing this when I'm 50. And that took me in a lot of different directions, to a lot of different cities, and in some weird situations. But I think that you have to make the best choice for yourself with the information you have at the time. And, you know, the climate in the world is a little bit different now. So like there are more resources out there. There are better ways to tap into communities and like, and to get support and to get help that I didn't have access to. Someone should probably give me a lot of advice along the way. But I think that's the biggest thing. And then taking that break and coming back in, that was a privilege that I had, right? So I can't say that that's the same for everyone, but like it gave me a chance to kind of clear my head and figure out, okay, you've been through all of these things for the past X amount of years. Like, how do you want to move forward? Like, where do you want to start? And like, what do you think is the best choice for you now? And it just goes back to that statement. Like, I had to make the best decision with the information I had at the time. And I think if you own that, you feel good about that, like living in this kind of like cycle of regret that we get into about past decisions is just like a spiral down to nowhere. Obviously, you know, retrospectively, there's things that we can learn from our past, like hindsight 2020, all that. But yeah, I just had to trust that like this is what I know how to do right now, and no matter where it takes me, like I'm kind of gonna trust the process. And you know, looking back on it now, I'm like, you know, what everyone said in the beginning, like it worked out. It wasn't easy. Let's not like say that was the case. We definitely had some moments, but yeah, I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, yes, thank you for sharing. I think one of the things that we all have to remember is that it's when you take those risks, it's never going to be easy, but more times than you think it's going to be worth it. Lanice, I know that you have a similar experience in regards to being out of the workforce and then re-entering. What was your experience like?
Yeah, so, you know, I have, you know, 3 children and had a family starting at an early age, and my ambition never went away, but my time and energy started waning as they took up space, which they often do. And so I had to make some decisions that really were related to keeping my family at the forefront or priority of what I wanted. I always made a decision as to, you know, am I working to live? Am I living to work? How do I make the two work together? And what is it that I really ultimately, at the end of my life, what is going to really matter? And my family has always been at the forefront of that. And so, you know, I've made decisions to, you know, stop working. And when my husband was relocated to Tennessee, I took a break and then realized slowly that that probably wasn't for me. And so it also offered an opportunity to pivot and change the course or the direction of what I thought would be my career. And so that break, you know, really actually gave me time and energy. And like Granda said, it gives you that kind of focus of what is it that you really want to do? What is it that gives you passion and drives you? And I found healthcare to be that. And so when I came back into the workforce, I actually had an energy. I was re-energized, but also having a family and knowing that that's going to be my priority, and the choices that I make are really about making sure that that is still the priority in my life. It's informed me on where I want to go and the kinds of decisions that I've made in my career. And I've actually agree, Maureen, I've made sideways, maybe taken back, and maybe up. It's a lattice, as they say, it's a lattice and not linear. I don't know what that ladder looks like. And so, you know, when I got back into the workforce, I felt better because I felt that I'd made a choice and my priorities were in a better place. And I understood that I needed to have that balance, and that doesn't change your ambition and it doesn't change what you want to accomplish, but it also gives you that focus so that you don't regret. Now, I will add to you all, if you do have children, and I wanted to reach out to Oni and let her know, listen, guilt is part of parenting. Keep it in your back pocket. It sits there, but don't let it guide your choices, your decisions, or make you feel bad, because that's just part of it. That's just part of it. And you know what? Because you're constantly thinking about what's the best choice either for your husband, family, spouse, or partner, don't let that make you feel bad. You're going to feel guilty. It's just part of it, but don't make that make you feel bad, and don't feel not empowered by what you want to do. So I had to add that in because I know there are a lot of people out there who are contemplating motherhood or just starting in their journey in motherhood. And I always say, you're going to feel guilty, and that's just part of it. Just live with it.
Thank you for that. Thank you. And kind of talking to, I know that we only have a couple minutes left, speaking to making the best decision to you. One of the things that I did want to ask, I did want to ask Maureen a question. Earlier when we had all got together, you mentioned that you had made a conscious decision with your husband where you guys weren't going to have children. Were you ever made to feel shamed for making that decision? And what advice would you give to other women out there who are contemplating the same decision, but are afraid of the negative assumptions that it might come with?
Yeah, and I'll answer that fairly briefly, and by saying, yes, of course, people have made some assumptions about why I don't have children, and have questioned my decision either openly or you can tell, and sometimes your ally will tell you. And the answer is that it's like every other major decision that you make, is that you make it for a reason. You have to have the strength of your conviction that that was what was the right thing to do. And at the end of the day, it's no one else's business. And you just have to know that in your heart, and you have to gut your way through it, take all the tips that you want to take from some of the things that Branda says, but in your heart, you know it's the right thing, and that means it's okay.
Thank you. There is one other question that's in the chat. And if you guys, I do want to be respectful for your time, but I think this is an important question. How do you know when it's time to move on from a job? And this is for anyone on the panel. I see Veronica's taking herself off of mute.
Say it's time when you have another job. Or to Branda's point, if you know you need a break and your mental health, physical health is suffering, then you have to leave. You have to leave. I think those are the two things that I would say. Don't never quit a job because you're just frustrated for a day, right? Or a week even. Make sure it's the right decision and that you set yourself up for success. And that's whether it's, like Brandon was saying, she had the fortune to, she was in a fortunate position to take a break, right? Not everyone is. So set yourself up for success. Don't quit just because it's a bad week.
Yeah.
Plan it out. That's what you plan. That's what you plan.
I would add to that, don't leave until you leave. As long as you're still there working, you're 100% in until you're gone.
Now, I would also add, and Ginny, I think, mentioned this before too, when you feel you're not learning or you feel like you're not adding that value, then I think it's time to start looking for something else. But I also agree with Maureen and Veronica. Have a job, have a plan, and let that fuel you. And if that's what you're seeking, something that's going to empower you, make you feel passionate, and you're constantly learning, then look for that. But stay focused on what you're doing. Don't check out until you've checked out.
Yeah, no, I love that, Maureen. Because I feel like there are times when sometimes I'm like, I'm over it. But I have to remember, but while I'm here, let me make the most of it and let me learn what I can while I'm here. And so I think for me, it's if I do feel that I'm starting to feel that I'm over it or I'm not learning, I'm not growing, I kind of try to use that as an opportunity to get curious and be like, okay, well, why am I feeling this way? What is it about my current position that is not exciting me anymore, especially if it's something that maybe in the beginning was exciting you, but what has changed, and kind of using that as an opportunity to explore and being a little vulnerable. Me myself, I've been thinking about, okay, should I look at I've been chatting with like a career transition coach to kind of help me kind of think through, a couple years out of grad school now, and has my learning slowed, and what would I be looking for in a new adventure? So kind of using that feeling as an opportunity to be like, okay, let me step back. What is no longer exciting me, and what is it that I would want to have or want to feel in my job, to kind of be more focused, to then make the next step of like, all right, so now let me look and be purposeful in exploring opportunities.
Yeah, I would just add that this is like a very practical answer to this question. Is because this literally just happened in my company. It happens all the time, but like a lot of businesses, we also work with a lot of healthcare companies too. So I'm going to kind of say maybe this is true, but internal mobility within organizations is a very hot topic right now. So is there another job at your organization that you could explore? And do you have the support to do that? You have some leverage in that too. Look at open roles within your business. Is there anything else that would interest you that, maybe you're just not feeling what you're doing right now? That's a little bit of like lower hanging fruit, but I mean, obviously if you're looking for a complete career change, like, LinkedIn is your best friend, but looking internally first, I think is a very practical, good first step if you're looking for a change.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. And since this is an Emory audience, I will say people at Emory love to mentor people, and they love to have people ask them about their jobs. So ask, and people will absolutely have coffee with you, even virtually. And you can find new stuff that way. Again, people love that. So take advantage.
And I liked what Veronica said earlier. One thought is just like one sentence I would tell myself if I was thinking I had like that bad week or that bad day. I would ask myself, if I wanted to leave, am I running from something or am I running to something? And that's always a thought I have in my mind if I'm thinking about moving on. And I really contemplate that.
Thank you so much. There's so many like quotes that you guys said that I'm going to watch this recording back and write it down. I very much appreciate you taking the time out of your schedules to join me today on today's panel. There's a lot of nuggets of knowledge that I hope our attendees took away, especially around those themes that I heard of owning the fact that if you do realize you're a diversity hire, own it, run with it. Even if you're not a diversity hire and you realize you walk into a room and you're the only woman of color, whatever it may be the best team member there, and just really own the fact that you're there for a reason. Don't get sucked into the thinking that imposter syndrome. Take care of yourself. I heard that a lot from all of you today. So again, a lot of wonderful things that I hope that our attendees got from you all today. I really appreciate you taking the time out. Before I bid everyone a good night, is there anything additional that any of our panelists want to, any words of wisdom to give to our attendees tonight? All right. Well, with that, thank you so much, everyone, for taking time out to listen to us today and to gain a little bit of knowledge based off of our experiences. And again, thank you to our panelists for joining us and gifting us with your time. Thank you.
Thank you, Jessica.
Thank you.
Thank you for organizing.
Yes, thank you.
Everybody. It's great. Yep.
Good night, everyone.
Bye.
Good night.
Bye.